Okay, so I'm Moshe. I'm coming to you from Israel and the Galilee on October 16th, Wednesday. It's about 9 in the morning, 75 degrees, high of 89. And I still got the little dogs outside, so I'll have to stop in a while and bring them in, but I want to give them as much fresh air as they can get, and then I take them out in the evening, so they get, I don't know, maybe I give them 4 or 5 hours. When the highs get lower, which I think is starting tomorrow. Tomorrow our high is 86, then 85, then it goes to 82, 81, 80, 81, then 86, 87. So it looks like we're finished with the 90s, or almost the 90s. So I could be more generous with the time they have outside. The big dogs, Beulah takes the heat rather well. The other one, no, not so well. And the birds have shade. They don't have to worry about direct sunlight. It's easy. They don't really get. It's easy for them to stay out of the sun. It's a piece of cake. Okay, so today's going to be a pretty interesting, I don't know what to call it, study of the current events and the um, Bible prophecy. And we're going to take a hard look at the dilemmas approaching, on America right now. It's basically, psychologists would call it an avoidance conflict. In other words, America's in a position right now where whichever way it turns, it's in a bad way. Okay? And I'm going to break it down to you and reveal it to you rather thoroughly, and I'm quite sure you'll agree with it. There's a scripture that we're going to rotate on, or deal with during the live stream, and I'll read it to you now to start. um, Jeremiah 50 verse 24. I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art taken, O Babel, or Babylon in the way they do it in English, and thou wast not aware, thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against the Lord. And we'll probably get into a little bit of Isaiah 47, the same thing with the daughter of Babylon, and the problems coming on the daughter of Babylon in like succession, and they don't know what to do about it. And I'll give you the blow by blow, explain it. We'll talk about oil prices. I listened to an economist that's a pretty well respected fellow that deals a lot with commodities, and oil and natural gas. Oil is the big one, and that's a commodity. And he went into a whole number of discussions, and I got this from other sources too, about the Straits of Hormuz, which is the pincher point where the Persian Gulf goes out into what we call the Sea of Oman, which is where the Abraham Lincoln Aircraft Carrier Group is. Last I heard, I think it's still there. So it's kind of out of most of the reach of Iran, and it's close enough for airplanes, of course, to launch and hit Iran. It's not that far away. The Straits of Hormuz is about 190 nautical miles long, I believe, and it's got a pincher point, like where the Houthis have been upsetting the Red Sea down at the south end there by Yemen. And this pincher point is 25 miles, something like that, across. So it is a narrow pincher point. And we're going to discuss what Iran's latest threats are and how this could affect the Straits of Hormuz and how this could affect the world. But before we start, I want to run some arithmetic with you. Not complicated, simple arithmetic. Iran, in reality, only produces about 2 million barrels a day of oil. So we take 2 million, I'm putting it in a calculator so I don't make a mistake doing it in my head. And I don't know, let's call oil $75. It's around there, okay? And that equals 150 million US dollars a day, okay, times 30 gives us $4.5 billion a month. I'm using the Gregorian calendar for this. And we multiply that by 12, and we get $54 billion a year. That comes into 54 billion with a B, that comes into Iran, and this does not take into account their natural gas, okay, which is probably much less, but it's still meaningful. Now they also sell pistachio nuts, and I'm not paying attention to that. What do they get on that? Maybe a few hundred million a year, or a billion, maybe, I don't know. They don't seem to sell a lot of manufactured products other than weapons, which I think they give away to their proxies mostly. But they're not making too much with cars, refrigerators, computers, buses, trucks, tractors. This isn't really a big industry with them. They probably make a lot of this stuff for their own use, I guess. But okay, so we're going to discuss how Iran could cause what's called a global economic collapse. This economist, that's a commodities analyst, he's a very bright fellow. He doesn't know the Lord by his discussions. As far as I can tell, maybe I'm wrong, but maybe I'm not, I don't know. But anyway, he wasn't talking Bible prophecy. But he was talking, and I'm going to cover the events with you as we proceed. If these events, which are really highly probable and likely with Iran and the Persian Gulf, occur, oil could hit, he predicts $350 a barrel, which would mean in America you're probably going to pay $15, $18 a gallon, which means many people ain't going to work. They're going to have to juggle, go to, ride sharing, in other words, carpooling. Everything will inflate like crazy. Bread, eggs, home heating oil prices will go up like, fivefold. So people are going to be walking around in the winter with gloves, hats, and down jackets. They're going to have to set their thermostat at some type of level to stop freezing. You can't have your house freeze and the pipes freeze and everything else. So I expect the lowest people would go would be maybe 50 degrees, which is going to cut your home heating oil costs down a lot. A lot of people may not go that low because it's too cold. They may go to something like 60 degrees, which is still going to reduce the bill a bunch. At, let's just say 65 degrees, people could function, I would think, okay. They just wear sweatpants, a sweatshirt, and shoes, and wear warm clothing and that type of thing. 60 degrees is basically more of the same, except you'd probably, pretty much the same thing. You'd have a sweater, sweatpants on, you'd have to keep your shoes on, and that kind of thing. You're not going to wear gloves, a scarf, or a hat. 60 is not bad, but when you start getting under 60, then it starts getting uncomfortable. So a lot of people will run their thermostat at 68, which is, some people would, the old days they might want to put it at 73, or 75 or something, keep it nice and toasty when the snow's outside, that's going to run the bill up. I mean, you're talking about some guy that's a lawyer or a surgeon making $800,000 a year. They'll keep it at 75. If their bill goes from $900 to $3,000 a month, they'll go pay the $3,000 a month. You know, a lot of people will fall behind them paying their power bill, and the power company's not going to be in any mood to carry them, and it's going to be a problem. All kinds of problems. Everything moves by truck, which uses gasoline, train, which uses gasoline, aircraft, which uses gasoline, ships, which use gasoline. So everything you buy is going to increase in value. Okay? And then you got to take a look at a super Walmart where the showroom, where the stuff's on the shelves, could be 50,000 square feet. Seriously. And they got high ceilings, don't they? They don't have an 8-foot ceiling, they got big high ceilings. Now, running that with heat, when you're in a climate where it's 25 degrees or 20 degrees outside, is going to be a very colossal expense for stores like this. So I don't know what they're going to do with their prices, but it's going to be punitive. Now, if you live in Florida, where in the winter most of the time it's in the 50s and 60s in North Florida, well, the effect will be minimal. If you're in South Texas or Southern California, you're going to be mildly affected by that. But when summer comes back, if things last that long, then you're going to have problems, because if it's 101 outside, you got to run the air conditioning, and then the power comes up. So it has its come arounds where if you're up north, you don't have to run the air conditioner that much. You can run fans. It's going to be a problem. And he said that the spike would not last that long because countries would take measures to accommodate for this, to react to it and adjust. And he said then the oil would probably drop to about 200 a barrel and maintain. So we're going to get into this, but I never heard the 350 figure before, and this was not a guy that was sitting there trying to alarm people, and actually the opposite. So we're going to get into that. Being a Bible-believing site, Old and New Testament, I'm going to do some praise right now. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 All right. Regarding me, there's something I'm going to tell you that seems to be happening as a surprise to me, and I, of course, want your prayer for this, and that is an opportunity open for me using the internet still. I'm not going to get specific, okay? One of the things the Lord's been dealing with me about in the last few days, and it took a long time for him to reach me where I got the picture, but I got it last night, is I'm talking too much about things. Not that I should run around fearing Satan and stuff like that, but I'm going too far in certain areas, directly into, related to prophecy, but not prophecy per se, not doctrine, but related. Some of you may figure it out, some won't, and I need to not do that anymore, so I'm not. But then this opened up, and here's the dilemma with this. The person, it requires a translation. Okay, it's a huge market. Okay, not a market. It's a huge audience potentially. I mean, huge, bigger than America. Okay, and I have to train this person to understand prophecy. I'm predominantly teaching the. Well, you know what I'm teaching. There I go again. You know what I'm teaching. So, a lot of prophecy, right? And I'm also teaching spiritual warfare, and I'm also teaching a little bit about the law. Without a temple and a priesthood right now, I don't. I think we have things that are probably more suited for us to devote our time and prayer and thoughts to, rather than projecting forward till we have a temple and getting into all the details of that. I don't think it's, you know, the right timing. You know, like we could study New Jerusalem and, you know, the millennium and all that, but I mean, we got a lot of other things facing us right away. So why go off on a big tangent on that? It doesn't add up to me. I think that's pretty much basic logic, you know. So you can't, in my opinion, and I think I'm right, you can't properly translate the Bible unless you know prophecy for real. You know, the real gospel. If you're going to run around with the, you know, the beast and the Antichrist interchangeably, you know, where the New Testament says even now there were many Antichrists among you. That was like roughly 2,000 years ago. So I mean, you can't run around interchanging that. You've got to get the names of the Lord straight. Jehovah, Elohim in the plural, God in the plural, you know, Yeshua, the meaning of the name Yeshua, you know, all these things you know, I've talked about it numerous times. You need to get all of this straight, and you need to understand that the Lord is not dead, there's going to be another temple. You know, the 270s in Daniel, and, you know, the appearing of the Son of Man in the clouds is not to return to earth with New Jerusalem, and, you know, the beast, and all of this stuff, the Gog and Magog, and the moon going to blood, the sun going dark, the moon going dark, the sun going dark, and the stars falling, and how they, you know, there's a number of things. As some of you may have gathered, I'm not a young guy. Okay? And this, what I do now, takes about 7-8 hours a day, roughly, you know, depending on how much I do with Telegram. And the Lord's had me shy away from trying to do more Bible studies in the afternoon and the evening. And I get the distinct impression that's because that's enough for one day for the old guy, right? So I've gotten, you know, more strength, stamina, and endurance, I guess, from the red light stuff. I don't want to dwell on that because I'm not here to teach that. And I have to be cognizant of that. But it has improved things. I'm also back on the olive oil, which is good too. It's starting to take hold, but yeah, in my experience, it takes about a week. I don't really know how many tablespoons I'm taking. I could guess 1 or 2 a day, but I pour it on bread. My wife makes fantastic bread. I mean, I remember in San Francisco, the best bread that I could recall was the Boudin was the bakery's name. It was a huge place, sourdough bread. That was great bread. Now, I never knew my wife when I was in San Francisco. She makes better bread. She comes over to me the other day, she makes this bread, and she says, here, it's real simple bread, you know, easy to make. What do you think of it? It's great, you know. And her bread doesn't have garbage in it, you know, that a manufacturer might put in. Things to increase the life of the bread on the shelf, or, you know, things that are really things I'd rather not eat, in my opinion. So She doesn't put any of that stuff in there. So then she goes the other day, she makes me Italian bread. She's asking me about it. She said she found the recipe and she showed it to me, and I said, no, the crust is not dark enough. She says, great, I'll put it back in the oven. A few minutes later it comes out, it's a little bit darker. She says, it's real hot. Of course, the dummy touches it and it's real hot. She was right. So I eat it, and she says, what do you think? And I said, well, I told her the truth. I said, it doesn't taste like real Italian bread to me, but it's really, really good. I don't know what it is, but it's really, really good. She says, oh, I just got a bum recipe or something to look around. Because there's the sourdough bread, which is superb, you know. The Italian bread that I grew up with in the Bronx, because there was Italian neighborhoods surrounding our neighborhood, and we had some Italian friends from the other neighborhood, and they had a superb Italian restaurant at the time called Allegro's in the Bronx, and we would go there as kids, and you know, we were teenagers or in college, I guess. A bunch of us would go and we would order, maybe a pizza that we'd split amongst four of us, and then we would have as an appetizer, and then we would have we'd order a pasta dish like baked ziti or baked spaghetti, or you know, different things. Nobody at that time was eating clean food, so we would have some sausage dishes they had, and we had ravioli sometimes. Rarely would I eat that, although it was good. Veal parmesan, different things. It was fantastic. And sometimes instead of doing the pizza, we'd order what they called the garlic bread. So they took a loaf of Italian bread and they cut it down the middle, and then they would put garlic on it with oregano and maybe butter, and it was great. So anyway, so that's how I'm doing my olive oil. I'm dumping it on the bread, so I don't really measure it, but I'm using the extra virgin cold pressed, I think. So anyway, um, let's get into it. I need to go into the live stream because we had a catastrophe yesterday. I think it was, where I had no sound. I had picture but no sound. So let me make sure that we got sound. Let's get into it. Well, we got sound. At least I do, and I'm not seeing everybody say no sound, no sound. We're getting El Shaddai, El Betel. The name is not pronounced Yahweh, it's Jehovah. YHVH, transliterating in English, if you could even do that. Jehovah. You see, all the names in Hebrew mean something. Like, first of all, there's no J in Hebrew, so it's impossible for the Lord's name to be Jehovah or the Messiah's name to be Jesus. Those names mean nothing in Hebrew, okay? Yeshua's name, the root is Yasha, which means salvation. And I would think when you make it Yahshua, you gotta understand, Hebrew doesn't go well into English. It gets choppy and obscure, and there's tenses in Hebrew, like from now on off into the future, like forever, you know. And there is no tense like that in English. So anyway, Yeshua would mean more like provider, giver of salvation. So that salvation comes from, you know. So they have names. Yeah, Yeshua means nothing, so it's not his name. And then they come up with Yahashua, and you know, that's not it either. Okay, so little tidbit. Uh, well, someone put up Danielle, it's Danielle, and Ezekiel, it Hezekiah, and Joel, since there's no J, is Joel, and on down. Jeremiah is Jeremiah. Solomon is Shlomo, and all this kind of stuff. They, like I say, the Hebrew doesn't go smoothly into English, where you can make French go into English pretty easily, but you're not going to do it with Hebrew. So it's like you're putting a round peg in a triangular hole or something. So, you know. So anyway, pray about me in this other country, if I should do it and how I should do it, because I can't go do this for 7-8 hours and then go 7-8 hours again. So possibly these could be translated. I don't know. So I don't have to do 2 a day. That would be the logical conclusion, into another language, and then put up maybe on a separate YouTube channel or on the same channel in the foreign language. And so pray about that, and that I should know if I should do it or not. Meanwhile, teaching this person who is highly likely a lost tribe, but teaching this person is not a problem for me, but whether or not to proceed, I need to know. But I think I should. So I'm pretty confident if you pray, it'll work out. What's Apostle John's Yochanan? Again, with a Y sound, Yochanan, not Jonathan, Yochanan. Okay. The equivalent of Yochanan in English is, I guess, Jonathan. That's the closest I can come. The mother of Yeshua, the earthly mother, is not Mary, it's Miriam. Okay? I mean, the Catholics run crazy with Mary, but her name is really Miriam. So when they start with Mary, I don't even know who they're talking about. They could be talking about the War of Babylon or something, for all I know. I don't know. I don't really get into the Catholic stuff because I think most of you are way above falling for that stuff. Okay. So I am going to put a couple of very fast posts in the chat. And I mean fast. So just sit tight and we'll go through it. Whoops. I'm talking and I'm making typos. Okay. Where did this go? Right there. And pin it up. And check the spelling. Good. Now I'm going to put my email address up if anybody wants to mail in anybody wants to mail in a prayer request, a toss request, a comment, a question, a scripture you want discussed, whatever. Or you could simply put it up in the chat. But I offer the email if you want more privacy, so that nobody knows who put it up, whatever. Okay. Well, somebody said petroleum may go 300 to 500. I haven't heard the $500 figure yet. But yeah, okay, I'm not going to kick against it. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. Has the Lord told me how much oil prices are going to soar to? He has not. Okay, I'm just trying to put it together with logic. It could be 500. I'm not going to say no to that. Okay, let me get my email address up. Okay, so where do we start? Well, let's start with the war pending with Iran. Iran has made, in the last 10, 12 days or so, a multitude of different threats to the United States, Israel, and the world. And the threats are varying, but I'll give you the basis of them. It's like if Israel attacks our oil industry, we're going to attack all the oil producing countries in the Middle East, which would be Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman, Jordan, Saudi Arabia. Okay? And the way they would do it is they would use their missile inventory, which is rather large, massive, to go after the oil refineries and the ports that these countries use. Without the refineries, they're going to run out of product. They generally have huge storage tanks, I guess you'd call them, by the port, where they run pipes or hoses or whatever from the tank into the ship. They might run 2 or 3 connections at the same time or something, maybe more, maybe less, into the tanker ship and fill it up with oil. I'm not going to dwell on the natural gas, we'll go with the oil, okay? And then the ship takes off with the oil and they make a sale. That's how it's done, right? So if you hit the port, you blow the piers up and the whole facility, right? And you get this storage for the oil and all that. Well, then they're out of business. They got to rebuild a new port and get it all set up. Usually there might be a pipeline that takes oil from the refinery and puts it into storage tanks, and that can get blown up, and also natural gas pipelines too, and storage could get blown up. So they would probably use their own country to launch from. They would probably use Yemen to launch into definitely Saudi Arabia, maybe Jordan or something, and they could also use Iraq and Syria. So could they reach all these countries in the Middle East? Yes. Could America defend against them? Well, I mean, if Iran decided to pick them off one at a time, and America had time to move resources there to do it, probably, but they would not do that. They would, go on multiple countries simultaneously, and would they create a global economic crisis if they were successful? I don't think any economist or commodities analyst would ever tell you that there would not be a global economic catastrophe. There would. Now, would that mean that there's no oil available? Well, it would mean for countries like China and, of course, India, who is not in warmongering mode at all. India is not going around looking, cruising for a bruising. They're not looking to get into a war at all. The opposite. They're not looking for this. But they are a massive oil consumer and they will get hurt. Industry could stop, economic collapse, all kinds of catastrophic stuff could happen. India has a weak economy to start with. Okay? But India has a lot of high tech and other things, and they grow stuff and sell stuff and manufacture. They can make money. They make money, but they got a massive population. And they're huge oil consumers, and this is a real problem for India. They are getting oil from Iran now, probably some from Russia, maybe some from Iraq. They want to be everybody's friend so they could get up there economically. Would they go the route of Iran if they grew economically and become a warmonger? I don't see it. Their predominant religion is Hindu, which is. Do you ever read about the Hindus getting up in the morning and say, "Let's go kill the Jews today"? Never. They like the Jews, actually. The Sikh Hindus really like the Jews. No, they don't. They don't care about that. Actually, they like us because they were oppressed by England, and so were we. I would not be able to come up with any kind of a scenario where the Hindus start to decide they want to go kill the Jews, nor could I come up with the Buddhists doing that. The Catholics have a history, but they're not in that mode right now. They don't have any mechanics for that. They never really did a Holocaust or anything like that, but they used to be quite violent. But no, there's only one religion, and actually just a fraction of that religion that proposes this, let's annihilate the Jews. And that's the Shiite Muslim terrorist states. Okay. So, the Sunnis at this point are not in love with Israel, but they're not out there actively trying to crush Israel. They don't like Israel, they don't share relations with Israel, things like this, but they're not out on the warpath. Okay, all right. So, China would have, well, let's see, India's not ready to go do something about the oil, like go to war. That could change if it happens, but so far, we're not seeing it. But India could go to war. But right now, I don't think they have any desire whatsoever to do that. China would have a massive nightmare if the Middle East oil got cut off. United States makes more oil from the shale, S-H-A-L-E, than Iran and Russia combined. They exceeded by about, I don't know, 6 or 7 million barrels a day. But America doesn't export all of that. But I heard this economist say that the American oil exports are greater than Russia and Iran together. But I'm confused because I had other information that America is exporting about 5 million barrels a day, but they might be able to increase it. So you have to understand, if America and Russian oil go, if Iran and Russian oil go, along with the UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, America's going to be self-sufficient with oil. They may have to cut their exports, or they may have to just give them to NATO countries or people that are closely aligned with America. But America could take it, but does that mean that it's not going to have rising oil prices? Well, here's the dilemma. The people in America that have the oil are going to say, well, we could sell it domestically in America for $75, $80 a barrel, or we could sell it overseas for $200 a barrel. What are we going to do? Well, there could be maybe provisions made with the government to stop the exports, or, I don't know. It'd be pretty far-fetched, but it could happen. I don't know. Okay. Iran is 2 million barrels a day. I think Russia is 5 or 6 or something. Not that high. 7 million or something like that. So if Iran's oil goes 2 million barrels a day, is that going to cause a global economic collapse? Absolutely not. Would it cause a fear-driven spike in oil? Oh yeah. Would it stay at a very high elevated place? By itself, no. Iran has the brains to know that, and they know that if they get their oil industry killed, their whole concept of becoming the king of the Middle East and controlling all the oil, which is their game plan, I'm pretty sure, is come to an end because they don't have the money to fuel their proxy states. And they're not about to start entering into various wars like directly attacking Saudi, the UAE, Kuwait, Israel. You know, this is not the way they want to roll, because then these countries will just get together, form a force with or without America, and attack Iran back. You know, so there's a real problem brewing because they're threatening to attack these countries. So these countries a few days ago told Iran, "Oh, we're not going to let Israel violate our airspace to attack you." Iran's not going to turn around and say, "Well, that's good. We thank you so much. The Khomeini thanks you, blah, blah, blah," and then lose their deterrent value to hopefully stop an attack on their oil and gas industry. No, they're saying that if we go down, everybody goes down in the world. Now, would they be able to cause a economic global crisis? 100% if they attack these other countries. Would it be a massive crisis? It would. It would last years. It would be really bad. Would it bring down just Europe and North America? Oh gosh, no. Asia, Africa, Central South America, Caribbean, everybody would be a thing. No, 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 no. It would be massive. So Iran is making a statement. Now this is where we get into to the dilemma or the paradox America is in. And this statement is, look, Uncle Joe Biden, we got, you know, hundreds of thousands of missiles of various shapes and sizes. We have ships that used to be container ships, and now they have a flattened deck, and they got lots of missile launchers on the deck. I've seen videos and pictures. They might have 15 or 20 missile launchers, maybe more, on the deck. And the interior of the boat is full of missiles. Can you imagine if you blew that boat up, the secondary explosions? My gosh, they'd probably last a couple hours, maybe, I don't know. Not that'd be too long, but and you know, with those boats, what could they hit? Well, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi, UAE, they could hit a lot. Okay, now what's the lifespan of these boats if they're slinging missiles into the oil refineries of these countries? Not a long lifespan. Okay? People are going to kill those boats. The countries that would be attacked have F-15s, F-16s, things like that. They don't have a lot. They don't have the real advanced ones, but they got enough. And they would, out of desperation, launch them to attack the boat, and then surface-to-surface missiles would be deployed against the ships, or anti-ship missiles, you could say, I don't know, whatever words you want to use. They would deploy those to attack the ships, and the ships would not have a long lifespan. Hours, day, two, I don't know. I don't think it would last long. But they could do surface-to-surface out of Iraq, Syria, and Yemen, and their own selves, Iran, and I think they would be able to hit all the facilities sufficiently to make a real catastrophe. Now, there's another way this could happen, and that's the Straits of Hormuz, which has a choke point of about, let's say, 25 miles wide, where the Persian Gulf empties into the Red Sea. So, Iran could prevent traffic. In other words, instead of attacking the other oil producing countries and killing their refineries and stuff like that, they could come up with another solution, and that would be to clog up the Straits of Hormuz to stop the ships from being able to pass through there safely, freely, lots of words we could use. And what are some of the scenarios? Well, they could use their go-fast boats, which launched torpedoes, and they got over 1,500, to swarm attack large oil tankers, military vessels, whatever, and hit them with torpedoes. The ship would catch on fire and sink. And that might be enough to obstruct the passage of other ships. Now, another way they could accomplish this is to lay nautical mines in the Straits of Hormuz, in that 25-mile long corridor, 25-mile wide corridor, the pincher point. Now, there are all kinds of nautical mines. You got the old World War II, where you got prongs sticking out of a round ball with, 4, 5, 600,000 pounds of explosive. And when these prongs hit a ship, maybe it has to be they have to hit a piece of metal as well, with magnetism involved or something. Then the mine goes off and can cause rather horrific damage to a ship, like a torpedo in a way. Okay? Those are old school mines. The newer mines, they use a line, probably a chain, and they drop a ballast weight down, and they figure how far below the surface they want this mine to be. So it could be 25 feet below the surface or 15 feet. And when a ship goes past the mine, the mine gets a magnetic signal. So the mine would have to have a battery that could probably keep it going for a few months. So it could be a battery that, the size of an icebox or a refrigerator or something like that, And when it gets the magnetic signature, the mine blows up. Now, the mine doesn't have to be in close proximity with the surface. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is the mine could be down 100 feet, and the ship's not going to hit the mine, but it's too deep. But the explosive force would, we're talking, let's say, a 2,000-pound explosive, or it could be larger, or 1,000 pounds. The explosion could throw the ship out of the water, break its hull, depending on how heavily loaded it is and with what. So that's another way to destroy ships with mines. And you could mix the signals. You could have mines that are under the surface that get triggered remotely. So some guys could be watching, and when they see the ship pass, they get a signal from the mine, and they realize it's not one of their ships. They hit the button, and who knows? There's a lot of things that can be done. The Iranians are probably a little bit creative about this, and they could have several approaches. So mining the the Straits of Hormuz, would mean you go with minesweepers and you gather up the mines, right? You deactivate them and stuff like that. And that can take time. That creates fear, and that gets oil prices up there. Oil prices would probably not go to 200 or 300 a barrel, but they might go to 120 or something like that, 100. But can they get the mines? Well, given enough time, they probably could. And when they blow the ships up with the mines, the ships are going to build debris under the water of the Straits of Hormuz and you've got enough ships piled up down there, you're not going to be able to cross the Straits of Hormuz. You're going to have to get excavation boats and, pull the boat away, and, it's going to be months. Then there's brute force. Using Iraq and Syria with missiles, anti-ship missiles, surface-to-surface missiles, drones, they could launch at civilian vessels, probably with a great deal of success. Look how well the Houthis did. They could also use unmanned naval drones, little boats which is basically an explosive. That's a drone, and then they pilot a swarm of those into ships. So the Houthis are not anywhere near as powerful as Iran, and they were able to take down a bunch of ships. So I think you could rest assured that Iran has greater capability than the Houthis, and they could take ships down. There's a big difference between blowing up ships and destroying the refineries. You blow the ship up, barring unusual circumstances like clogging up the Strait of Hormuz, you destroyed, a few million barrels of oil, and that's the end of it. They could do all of that. They could hit the ships, they could put mines in, they could shoot missiles at all the oil refineries and so forth. So Iran is telling America, back off, you're not in control anymore. China, North Korea, Russia, and Iran are in control, not you. You want to mess with us and call our bluff, we'll wreck your frail little economy, blah, blah, blah. That's how I'm sure they're dealing with America. Now, Biden and NATO and Europe, and other countries should wake up and realize that this is a catastrophic threat against their economy, Of course, the Houthis will cut internet cables too, I would say, in the middle of this. So if Iran gets attacked, the internet cables could go, or not. I don't know. So America has a problem with Israel because at one point they were saying if Israel hits the oil and gas industry, Israel hits our nuclear facilities, we're taking out all the oil in the Middle East. Then they're telling the nations that helped Israel with missile takedowns, you do that, you're an enemy of Iran, you're a guilty party along with Israel, and we'll kill you. So America says to Israel, don't attack the nuclear facilities. Now that's a joke. Netanyahu, I doubt, could really take out the nuclear facilities, let alone 5 of them. Maybe he could, but maybe he can't. They're at least 90, 100 feet under the ground, and they got massive walls of concrete that's reinforced, rebar and all that stuff. Heavy, dense concrete. It may not work. Israel doesn't have 25 or 30,000 pound bombs that burrow down and then blow up. Does America have them? Yeah. Could they deploy those? Yeah. Would they get down deep enough to, either kill the people down in the bunker or get the bunker to collapse and, kill everybody, or, in the nuclear facility, destroy the facility? There's also a chance that it won't work and it's just going to cause, if Israel uses volleys of 2,000 pound bombs, there's a decent chance they would cause some superficial damage to the nuclear sites, and that's not it. Now, if they sat there and they came a few times a day for days, dropping, you know, 5 or 6 of these 2,000-pound bombs on a facility and just did it over and over and over, they eventually would destroy the facility. I think everybody knows that. So that could also happen. But it doesn't stop Iran from launching missiles, hitting their oil refineries and their pier where they offload the oil, and their pipelines for oil and gas. Hitting all of that is doable by Israel, but it doesn't stop the missile launches. So Israel's primary raids or attacks on Iran have to be to disable the military launching missiles at Israel. Then with that can be associated trying to kill Khomeini, and Khomeini can be in a bunker that's 100 feet down, and they can send 4 jets, each one carrying, 4 of these. Well, I think with the 2,000 pounds they could carry, maybe they could carry 4, at least 2. So send, a dozen of those onto his. He's not in a nuclear facility, most likely. He's in another facility that would have command and control capability for the military. So they could just, keep dropping these 2,000-pound bombs, which are bunker busters, over and over again. Maybe it would take, for the facility 12 bombs, but that's probably about all it could take. And then it would probably get damaged. And they killed Khomeini, but we killed Nasrallah. Did that stop things? Yeah, for a day or 2 or 3, maybe. That's it. So the idea is to hit Iran's military capability with a specific emphasis on launching drones and missiles at Israel. And the same would have to apply to Syria and Iraq, which would be joining the festivities. So the only targets that make sense are military targets pertaining to missile launching. Iran has recently threatened America by saying if they weren't specific. If you do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, any one or all of these things, we're going to attack your troops. No. They're talking vague, America, you better watch what you do, and this and that. Well, the Americans probably have about 50,000 or 60, 70,000 even now, soldiers in theater in So, yeah, they can hit Khomeini, but so what? Let's say they kill Khomeini. It's not going to stop anything. We learned that with Nasrallah. So the initial attacks really have to be on Iran's military and specifically their missile launching capability. That has to be the beginning of the attacks. Now, the attacks may come day after day after day after day. There might be 5 or 6 attacks. So Israel is bracing for this. Now, what you probably don't know, because Israel's not releasing the figures, and honestly, none of us really know accurately, but reports are a low of 400,000 people, Israelis, have left Israel in recent months and weeks. And it could be as high as 1 million. Now, it's probably a good 500,000 anyway. So that's their war of attrition, and it's working. It's getting Israelis to leave Israel. And a lot of Israelis, you probably wouldn't know this, secular Israelis, are of the belief that This country, Israel, may not be allowed to exist anymore. They're secular. And it's over, so let's just leave now. What do we got to go through the heartache and the misery for? Let's just leave now. And this is a bad thing, and this is what they're trying to do to get millions of people to leave Israel. And there's been a lot of companies that have gone bankrupt since October 7th, 2023. In Israel, the tourist industry is kaput, which the tourist industry affects certain restaurants, not all restaurants, just some. It affects, now remember, this came after the COVID, so we got some recovery from COVID, which I guess we would say was 2019, 2020, which wrecked the tourist industry and wrecked the hotels and the restaurants and the tour operators and all that, and then it happened with the war, so we recovered and then we got it back again. There's hundreds of thousands of Israeli soldiers that are not going to work in their companies. They're on reserve duty. A person I know just went up last night to the north. So this is a victory of the Iranian Axis. Now, the plot thickens. There was an official statement, I put it up on my Telegram this morning. It was stemming from Blinken. I think it was naming Blinken, Sullivan, and the Secretary of Defense of America. And they were saying that they're responsible to report to Congress about, because they're giving weapons to Israel, and the requirement is they report back to Congress, I guess, with information about how these weapons are being used, of things of this nature, or the state of the war, or whatever. And they're saying that they're very troubled about the attacks on Beirut. Well, the stinking Hezbollah is all over Beirut. And we're hitting weapons depots and weapons in houses and things like that there. Well, it's the same old thing again with America. We don't want Israel to be destroyed. We want to continue with this fake Israel, but we by no means want Israel to have a victory anywhere. So, it's not a good thing for us to have to stop bombing in Beirut. And a lot of this probably came from Macron, the, whatever you want to call it, leader of France. Then they came back with another thing they want us fixed. They want humanitarian aid getting into Gaza in the north, reaching the people. See, what Israel was intending to do was cut electricity, cut cell phones, cut humanitarian aid in the north, get all the civilians out, and then Hamas is left there, and then we play wipeout on Hamas. Well, America doesn't want that because Biden is following the old Henry Kissinger doctrines, which is don't let Israel have a victory. Protect Israel, but Israel shall not win any wars. They get ceasefires and, the war stops. You don't decimate the enemy. You don't take the land back. That type of thing. And that's what that idiot Biden follows. So they want the humanitarian aid going back into Gaza again in great amounts, and they want Israel to control it so that Hamas doesn't steal it from the population. And Israel responded to this already and is bringing more humanitarian aid in. So they're not letting us have the victory. So they're basically, their alibi story is, well, you're doing atrocities in Gaza and you can't be getting weapons from us and doing atrocities. But the reality is Israel shall not win a war. Okay? Now that doesn't go over well with Jehovah, believe me. Because America is not really helping Israel. America is using Israel as a proxy like America uses Ukraine. But it's a more advanced, sophisticated proxy than Ukraine. So they have to deal with it differently. Now, you have to leave yourself room for this. Netanyahu is not completely controllable. He pushes the envelope. Okay? They said, oh, don't attack the nuke facilities. Netanyahu agrees. Well, how the heck could he do anything with the nuclear facilities? And why would he want to start there when it's certainly not going to stop Israel from taking missiles and rockets? It's stupid. Netanyahu would never start with the nuclear facilities. It's got threat value maybe, but that's it. And why would he start with the oil refineries? Because that's just going to infuriate Iran and we're going to get more missiles. And then ultimately, we got to knock out these missile launchers and missiles. So what makes sense the most is start with knocking them out militarily, getting rid of the drone threat and the missile launch threat as much as possible. And then you can go in and do whatever you want. So, you know, saying don't hit the nuclear facilities, don't hit the oil and gas industry in Iran, you know, that shows me those are just empty statements because Israel had no intention of doing that, I'm sure. So it makes Biden look good. Now, there's a lot of scary things other than the scriptures that we need to deal with, and that is that Netanyahu goes off the reservation and doesn't always listen to America. Does things without America's blessings. He pushes the envelope with America. So Netanyahu may do some sort of an attack in Iran that's devastating. This business with the bombing of Beirut, I think we stopped for 3 or 4 days already. And the humanitarian aid is already going into North Gaza. So Israel's going into compliance. And the chances are America will accept that and write to Congress, yeah, they're doing compliance. We requested they do this and that, and they did it. And the weapons will probably flow to some extent, but I understand they're still withholding them. They're manipulating us. They want Iran. Now, if there's a war with Israel and Iran, will America ever enter the war offensively against Iran? If Iran just launches against Israel, America will just try to do takedowns. If the attacks continue just on Israel, it's hard to say what America will do. They might want Iran and then try to surgically just hit missile launching sites without harming the infrastructure or the political government or anything like that. They might do that, but that would probably be the most. But if Iran starts attacking the American soldiers, and they said they were going to, all the bases in the Middle East, that before the recent buildup, there were 38,000 American soldiers in the Middle East. Now, these are, of course, multiple American bases in Iraq and Syria, plus UK base or two. 5,000 in Kuwait, thousands in Bahrain and Qatar, thousands in UAE, probably 5,000. Jordan probably has 8 or 10,000. And Saudi Arabia has a bunch. And Oman has, I don't know, 2,000 or 3,000. And those are the old figures. These are much higher figures now, but nobody's talking. So I don't know how much higher they are. Okay? So would it surprise me if there were 50,000 soldiers in the Middle East? No, not at all. I would expect that to be the figure. Now, if America starts getting hit in these bases and there's casualties, they may attack Iran because they're not about to pull their bases out and just Iran, hand Iran the keys to the kingdom of the Middle East. America doesn't have much use for Iran these days. They're just a threat. So let's look at what just happened in Asia Pacific. North Korea, who you would have to consider to be a lunatic-run country, okay? This crackpot destroyed the roads and the bridges and all means of railways and other ways of getting troops and equipment from South Korea into North Korea. Without roads, it's not so easy. Equipment is going to move on trucks, and, trucks will get bogged down. He bombed his own roads and blew them up. Knocked out a bridge or two, stopped the railroad tracks from going. Why is he doing this? He's putting all his artillery on high alert, 200 serious missiles on the border with South Korea. North Korea has them set up. Because he intends to attack South Korea, and he'll do it predominantly with his artillery at start, which he uses rocket-propelled shells with long barrels, and they could reach 40 miles. I understand his artillery capability can put a round of artillery in every square meter out, going 40 miles into South Korea from the border with North Korea. Now, it's going to take him hours and hours to do it, but he could do it. So he could create a 40-mile obliteration where there's nothing alive in there, okay? And then he can push in that 40 miles and then create another front, bring the artillery closer, and then push in another 40 miles. Eventually, he's going to hit that American Air Force, it's a military base in South Korea that used to have 28,000 military. I would expect that figure is probably 35,000, 40,000 by now. And they're past the 40-mile range of the artillery, but if he pushes into South Korea and moves artillery closer, then he could get the base. And his idea would probably be 50 artillery pieces, the way that character thinks, and just start pelting artillery into the American base for hours. Well, that's going to have results. And the way it would be stopped, because his artillery is well hidden in mountains and rocks and things like that, in caves. They have like railroad track, and they propel the missile launcher out of the cave on the track till it clears the cave. I think you're probably talking 50, 100 feet. And then they probably lock the launcher onto the track, and they start firing. And I think they could safely fire 5 or 6 rounds before they go back inside. So it would make it very difficult for South Korea and or America to stop this artillery barrage on South Korea, which would be supported further with missile launches at strategic military targets and infrastructure, electric generators, oil and fuel storage, ammunition depot, missile depots, missile launch sites, military bases. So missile drones and heavy artillery would go in, and the way that South Korea would probably have to stop that would be to push in with armored columns, tanks, mobile artillery, armored vehicles, and go in and kill the guys shooting the artillery. So that's why they took out the roads. Now, he could always restore the roads. But we had an incident yesterday. North Korea came into the DMZ, demilitarized zone, and tried to put landmines in there to further stop South Korea from coming in through the DMZ. And the South Korean army shot at the North Korean soldiers, seriously shot at them, not warning shots in the air, engaged them in combat. So I don't think North Korea was very successful at all in that endeavor. But it turned into a military gunfight. And that's serious. That's a serious event. And that was yesterday. China, yesterday, I think, circled Iran with a lot of ships. For 2 days this has been going on. They used the China Coast Guard, which is like a Navy warships and stuff, in one case, and I think they had 14 ships surrounding Taiwan on all fronts, surrounding, like all about. And they had over 100 aircraft fly over Taiwan airspace. So this is a very serious threat. Now, they do threats like this all the time, although this was perhaps the biggest one so far. America just watches these things. This must have happened 80 times in the last year or so, or 50 times. It's not new, but it's a little bit, it's bigger, but not new. So one day China does that, and it looks like another exercise, and the admirals and the generals of America over there in the, the Asia Pacific theater yawn, hey, what's on TV? What's for dinner tonight, Chief? And and then all of a sudden, guess what? It's real. The Chinese planes that violate Taiwan airspace are dropping bombs. The ships are launching missiles. Massive amount of aircraft and troops are coming from mainland China, only 110 miles away. And it's game time. They're invading Taiwan. Japan will engage them, and South Korea probably will to a limited extent. Australia will deploy whatever limited resources they can muster up, a few warships or something, but they're pretty enthusiastic about getting in the fight. New Zealand, I don't think will do anything. And the Philippines can't do much other than defend their own place. And Guam is a big base, they'll get activated. And then at the same time, of course, North Korea is attacking South Korea. And there was a Chinese aircraft carrier in the last 48 hours that went maybe 72 hours, probably about 48 hours, went something like 290 miles or kilometers, I think it was miles, from Japan. And they did between 90 and 100 launches and landings of their planes on the Chinese aircraft carrier. They take off, fly around, come back and land. Probably were observing Japan in the ocean and stuff like that. I don't know exactly what they were doing, but it was a straight up provocation. They don't carry 70 or 80 planes like American carries. They're probably in the 40, 50 range. So they did a rather substantial exercise that was spooking Japan. Now, Japan can and will fight. They're not cowards. They're smart. No doubt they're smart. Well, how do we know Japan is smart? Well, let's see. They sell computers, they sell great cars, great appliances, they sell tires, they sell lots of stuff. Watches, radios, cameras. These people are smart people that are industrious and they know how to do stuff. They got a lot of financial banks. And these are not dummies, and they also know how to make war and how to fight. And they do fight tough. They don't fight like lunatics wanting to be martyrs and get the 70 virgins. They fight smart, okay? Okay? They got equipment and they can fight and they will use it and they're well trained. And they hate China and China hates Japan. This I learned when I studied martial arts. This bad blood goes back better than 100 years. They're really have resentment for each other. And if China messes with Japan, China is going to get a bloody nose, both nostrils, two black eyes, and probably a broken jaw and lose some teeth. They're not walking away. They might get over on Japan, don't be so sure, but the price they're going to pay is going to be brutal. Now, the South Koreans, do they know how to fight? Oh, yeah. They're also into big with the martial arts over there. That's where Taekwondo came from. And other martial arts, Hapkido. But, that shows the mindset of the people. That, going out there, going like this in a war field, it's moronic. It's not going to do anything, But they can fight. Does South Korea make anything? Oh, yeah. They make great cars, Kia, Hyundai. They make all kinds of guns and military weapons. They make all kinds of electronics, appliances, vacuums, I guess, televisions, These are smart people in South Korea, like Japan. Is there a chance that there's lost tribes in there? Oh, I'd say a high probability. But they can fight, and they do fight, and they got the equipment to fight with, and they got the wherewithal. So China needs North Korea, which is just a proxy of China. The guy that runs, if you want to call him a guy, the one that runs North Korea, he does not care about losing 500,000 soldiers or something like that. He doesn't care about things like that. He doesn't care about his people. It's like Mao Zedong, when the nuclear threat was, everybody thought it was real. Years ago, they threatened Mao Zedong, and he sat down there with the Americans and said, I don't care if I lose 100 or 200 million people. I'll come out on top in the long run. And they looked at him, the generals and stuff, and he said, oh, you don't believe me. You better believe me. I don't care if I lose 100 million or 200 million people. He was talking like that. And I think eventually the Americans realized that they had a nutbag on their hands, a nutcase. And these people are not worried about losing their, China losing a massive amount of the population. Neither is North Korea. They're communists. Die for the state. But it's not like, you're going to go to paradise and get the virgins. It's nothing anywhere near like that. Okay? But you better believe that South Korea can deliver with Japan and Taiwan. China has got a problem, and they're going to walk away with a lot of bruises. Now, the advantage that China has is I don't think any of these countries, combined or otherwise, can sustain an invasion of China at all. So China is well aware of the fact that they're not going to get hit with a ground invasion. Okay? Even with America and NATO, I have great doubts about a ground invasion being possible or likely with China. I don't see it. And they know that, so they're not going to be fighting on their homeland, but their Navy and Air Force and a lot of their soldiers will be decimated, killed. They're not going to walk away. If America and NATO get into it, they're going to have problems with bombing on their homeland and missiles and ports and piers and infrastructure and all the other stuff's going to happen. They're not going to be walking away. They're going to get busted up. And they know they're going to get busted up. So why did North Korea and China escalate in the Asia-Pacific region in the last 48 hours or so? Because they're trying to save Iran. Can they mobilize and come to the Middle East in mass? I'm not talking 10 or 20,000 soldiers, talking, let's say 100,000 soldiers, 200 or 300 airplanes, 15 warships. That wouldn't do much. They would need more. Okay? So could Russia and China unite in the Middle East and bring 25 or 40 warships that launch missiles and stuff like that and threaten Israel and the United States? They could. Do I think they're going to do it? No. I think they got a better threat level going with what they got now. And the threat is this: leave Iran alone, which means don't let Israel decimate Iran. Or we're going to take out South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, and probably Guam. And America, if that happens, if America just said, well, we're not going to lose, a major piece of our Navy out there. Let's just call the ships back to Pearl Harbor and protect Hawaii and the West Coast and let the Asia-Pacific region fall. Could America do that? Oh yeah. Are they capable of that? Absolutely. Look how they treat Israel. Would it give China and North Korea a rather guaranteed victory? It would. They would get hurt and busted up, but they would likely prevail. Maybe not, because it's end times. But that's nothing that America wants to see happen, because then they lose any and all influence and control in the Asia-Pacific region. So they're telling America, if Iran goes, Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea are going to go. And they're saying, look, America, wake up. How are you going to handle Putin in Russia? Because he, at the same time, is going to attack NATO countries. Like who? Well, he could pick the easy ones off: Lithuania, Latvia, Finland, places like that, Estonia. He could pick off the harder ones, which would be Poland and Romania, or he could go for all of them. Why would he be that bold? Because he knows that China and North Korea are going to mess with America big time in Asia Pacific, and at the same time, Iran is going to mess with the Middle East by knocking out the oil all over the Middle East. No military analyst worth his salt is going to tell you that America can handle a big Middle East conflict and a big fight with Russia and NATO against NATO, and China and North Korea attacking South Korea, Taiwan, and Japan and Guam. They can't. America would not even be close to handling that because they got to defend America too. Now, there's a wild card here they don't like to talk about, the sleeper agents. If America goes, okay, we're going to deploy 80,000 troops to the Middle East, we're going to send 45,000 more to NATO, we're going to send 25 or 50,000 troops to South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan, and a lot of planes and boats and missiles and anti-missile systems. Guess what? That's playing right into China and Russia and Iran and North Korea's hands because when the sleeper agents gets launched, they have far too few resources in America at that time. So if America does not start sending troops and military assets to these regions may not survive China, North Korea, and Russia and Iran. And if they do send big military deployments to help defend these regions, they leave themselves vulnerable to the sleeper agents. So America is in a avoidance conflict. Whatever they do, it's no good. Why can't America just sit still and say, hey, let's get reasonable. Let's pull our military out, go home, defend against these sleeper agents, get them out of America, break the law, deport them, whatever, just get rid of them, pass an executive order, just throw them out. They could. It would be a smart move of theirs, but what would happen is they'd lose their influence in Europe, the Middle East, and the Asia Pacific, and the hammer of the whole earth and the great voice would be relatively deactivated. Now, there is a much more massive risk to America, and that's called BRICS. The meeting October 22nd to the 24th in Russia is going to introduce their, what they're calling BRICS Pay, and a blockchain, digital currency type thing like Bitcoin in that genre. Putin's going to run it, along with China, but predominantly Putin. And they're going to, by the way, Putin told the Jews in Russia, 1 million came, 90 to 91, that they could come back to Russia. He's welcoming them to come back and leave Israel. And some left. We don't get numbers. Some went back. You see, there's a lot of people in Israel that they're secular, you would say, and they don't believe that they're afraid Israel, it may be time up for Israel and it's going to come to an end, and they leave. If that was true, then it would be followed by a Holocaust, but we know that's not true. But they think it is. So Putin's inviting them to come to Russia. That's not making Netanyahu feel warm and mushy inside. Not very many are going to go, in my opinion, but some might. They don't want to be called up in the reserves or the draft and fight in this war. They don't want to have their houses missile attacked, like up in the north by Lebanon, which plenty of Russians lived up there, because the housing is cheap. Nahariya, which is 7 miles from the Lebanese border on the Pacific, keeps getting missiles periodically, and a lot of it's basically Russians living there. Some Ethiopians, because the regular Israelis, the ones that have lived here their whole life and stuff, don't want to go there because it's too close to Hezbollah. So they let the strangers, the foreigners, the ones that weren't born and raised here, they can go live there. Let them be cannon fodder. See, that's why the 2/3 get cut off. They have horrible attitudes, these Israelis, towards people that are not native to Israel, born here and all that. Even if you came here and you've been here 35 years, they still don't look at you the same as if you were born and raised here. Now, if your parents came from Russia and you were born here or came when you were 3 years old or something, and you went to school with them and you went to the military and all that, do they treat you the same? No, but close. But they still look down on them. And they don't let them in. Their kids don't marry them normally, and they don't hang out with them. It's not nice. It's ugly. And everybody's a Jew in this debacle, and they still do it. Ethiopians, discrimination against them is, 5 times worse. Um, if you're from America, they will treat you better than they will the Russians, but they still, they're like children. They lie to you, they try to take advantage of you. They're not that nice to you, but they're not that unnice to you either. But they don't really let you in. So the Russians tend to congregate or be friends with the other Russians, of which there was way over 1 million because they had children and the children grew up and all that. And I don't know how many went back. I don't think it's that significant. I mean, I don't think it's 100,000. I don't, maybe 10 or 20,000 or something. I don't think it's that high. They're not. They're not thinking, oh, we'll go back to Russia, they'll be safe. Russia's on the chopping block too, and they know that. So they're not so quick to go there. But some would probably go. They have family there and stuff like that. And Putin gave them a red carpet, come back and, you'll be fine here. And, So, this is the stuff that's going on now, but the real dilemma with America is if BRICS continues, with 159 countries wanting to join this blockchain digital payment system, and they're going to be posting a basket of currencies. So if you want to get $1 billion of BRICS blockchain money or digital currency, you could post, now they're going to release what they're going to accept. Of course, you could pledge gold in the country's vaults. But it appears they're probably going to open up to things like wheat and rice, and maybe cattle, natural gas, oil, and other things. So basically, Putin and China, if they want to, they're the ones that are going to be in control, and they could say they post, $900 billion of assets using oil, natural gas, wheat, whatever, and they basically can print money out of the thin air, just like America does with the Federal Reserve. Except there would be no interest payments for this money, so they're not increasing the national debt. So this gets the countries that join to conduct trade and commerce with any country they want. If they're on the terror watch list, no problem. If they're under sanctions, no problem. If they're evading taxes, no problem. And Putin said that they would open it up to chain stores, retailers. So these chain retailers could be like, an Amazon or Fridays restaurants or McDonald's, but I don't think these companies that are American-based are going to mess with America and join that. But there's similar companies that are retailers that are not based in the NATO countries or America, and they might join this. But that's not that substantial. Of course, it's going to open the door for drug cartel money laundering. They just say they got a restaurant and they dummy up the books and say, oh, this month we took in, $4 or $5 million in this store, and they send it to BRICS to buy other stuff. There's all sorts of stuff that can happen. Okay, so the people, they're trying to create a massive amount of countries not using the euro or the US dollar, which will decrease the demand for the dollar substantially. And the value of the dollar would not go down 3% or 8%. It's going to go down, 40, 50% or more if this is successful in a few months, like 2 or 3 months, 4 months, something like that. And it's going to mean the death of the dollar, okay? Because they're buying and selling oil and natural gas and wheat and rice and many things without the dollar being involved. as the international currency. So China wants this because they could buy oil from Iran, the UAE, which I think's in BRICS or shortly will be, and Russia. And India wants it because they can buy oil this way too. And America can't affect their sanctions or even understand or know what transactions went down. As a result of this, international banking will come up, you know, in the BRICS countries where they don't cooperate with America because they don't need the SWIFT system anymore. They can use the digital currency to do bank-to-bank transfers. I don't think they'll be able to issue Visa cards or MasterCards or Amex or anything like that. So they'll just create their own, you know, Bitcoin-based credit card. You know, they'll call it whatever they call it. Who knows what they'll call it? Okay. That would come later because that's a consumer product. Initially, they're going after the big fish, countries trading with other countries in billions of dollars, and they want that to all take place without the US dollar. So they will break NATO and America. So if America does nothing, it's going to get broken. So to stop America from getting broken via BRICS, and they're not talking about this, but it's real. They are. I mean, people are saying BRICS is going to de-dollarize the world and it's going to have a tremendously bad financial impact on America, but they're not talking about wars related to this. All right. So Russia, Germany said, we're not giving Ukraine any more weapons the other day because they're losing. They're not going to sustain. Maybe they're right. But there's a lot of people that know what they're talking about that says Russia is losing. Their ammo and missile inventory is shrinking. Their soldiers are getting killed. Money problems. You know, so who's really winning? Like I said, it looks to me like Ukraine and Russia are just destroying each other more than it is anything else. So eventually Russia winds up in a weakened state, and then NATO could find an excuse to move on Russia. The only chance of pulling this off is if Russia, Iran, North Korea, and China stick together and show openly that they're all going to move against America and in turn NATO collectively, because they know that it cannot be handled by America with or without NATO. So if America does nothing, BRICS will kill them economically. It will ultimately. Give it a year, and America will be in a third world country. It'll be bankruptcies like crazy, okay? All kinds of problems, any and all kinds of problems. Civil unrest, threat of revolution, disease, famine. I mean, it'd be a horrible thing for America. And they know this. They don't talk about it, but they know this. Or they could get in the war and shut Iran out of BRICS. And Russia is basically in a bad way already, and they could just have to push harder against Russia to stop this blockchain thing. So America is stuck. Whatever they do, they lose. If they walk away from Israel, Iran's going to run the Middle East and control all the oil and it'll all be forced into BRICS, and there's going to be even a lower demand for the dollar. And they'll break America and Europe. Plus, they're going to break inadvertently a lot of countries in Africa and South and Central America and the Caribbean, and they don't care about that. And if America does do something to protect themselves and stop Iran and Russia, well, then they run the risk of the oil in the Middle East being destroyed. One second. Oh. I'm still wrestling with them for my package. Crazy people. Okay, so what does America do? It doesn't matter. Whatever America does, it's between a rock and a hard place. Do you understand? America has not gone with diplomacy for, I don't know, 30, 50, 60 years. What America does is it uses the big stick, the military. It's weaponized the US dollar in the form of sanctions. And that's how America conducts itself. Sanctions and military. That's it. That's what it's doing today. That's what it's been doing for decades. Okay? When you take away the need to operate in the US dollar for these countries through BRICS pay, which apparently 159 countries want to see come to pass, well, America's left with one alternative, and that's military. But America's military is not up to, to handle China, Iran, Russia, and North Korea. America would have to have a serious military of at least 3.5 to 5 million soldiers. At least 3.5 million minimum. Okay? And that would mean they'd need a draft, and if they do that, the country will break up, I'm sure. They just don't have a good way out. I'll read again Jeremiah 50:24, the daughter of Babylon. I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babel, and thou, Babylon, and thou wast not aware. So America was not aware. Thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against the Lord. Well, look what they've done with Israel. Promoting a fake Israel and not letting Israel expand, forcing Israel to give the Sinai Peninsula back, forcing Israel to give Gaza back, giving Israel some sort of assurances that they would protect them if anything popped up from that, and now they're thinking of breaking that promise to Israel, using the excuse of humanitarian aid, and you can't bomb Beirut, even though our enemies in Beirut, we're not supposed to bomb Beirut. And we're supposed to feed our enemies that keep threatening to do another massacre in Israel like October 7th and not wipe them out. So, is America striving against Jehovah? Absolutely. This is the controversy over Zion. Isaiah 34:8. I'll read. For it is the day of the Lord's vengeance, which you could say, you can interpret as revenge. Vengeance is not that bad of a translation. And the year of recompenses, that's payback or retribution, for the controversy of Zion. The controversy word is not strong enough. It's strife, like fighting over Zion. Okay? America wants Israel to give the West Bank back and East Jerusalem, which is where the site of the next temple is. That's what America wants. America wants what Satan wants. Duh. That's what America wants. And that is fighting with Jehovah. Okay? And his plans for Israel. Let me see what's going on in the live stream. Quit making me hungry. Okay, I'll quit. Iran's newest missile, 2,000 kilometers. Iran says they have a lot of things that they might have and they may not have. They brag a lot, and it's not based in very much. Well, there's somebody that's posing, Yeshua is coming for his bride very soon. Well, he's depends what you call soon. What you really need to understand, guys, is Yeshua teaching you what the timing of the rapture is. And it's in the scriptures plain as day, but the churches don't explain it to people. And people don't spend enough time digging in the scriptures themselves. John 6:39. And this is the Father's will which hath sent me, that of all which he hath given me I should lose nothing, but should raise it up again at the last day. That's the rapture, going up to heaven. It's on the last day, which means there's no more days. So it's after the millennium, after Satan's released. Father God Jehovah comes down from heaven, the whole earth burns up, the universe. We meet him on the clouds of heaven because there's no place to stand. And at that point we have a spiritual body and we go up to heaven in the clouds to be in heaven for eternity. And he says it again in the next verse, and this is the will of him that sent me. Everyone which seeth the Son and believeth on him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. He says it a second time. Church ignores it. John 6:44. No man can come to me except the Father which hath sent me draw him, and I will raise him up at the last day. Now, Yeshua said it 3 times, and he says it a 4th time, and the church ignores him all 4 times. John 6:54. Whoso eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood hath eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. Okay? So you got to draw a conclusion with yourself. Are you going to believe your Bible, or are you going to believe the church? If you're going to believe a church that contradicts the words of Yeshua and doesn't believe the Bible, you're in a cult. No? I rest my case. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see. It says that Yeshua will deliver you from the wrath to come, but that's not him returning to earth for this rapture. They made this rapture thing up. Okay? It's completely fabricated. It goes back to Darby and Schofield. Iran could reach us, yes. High insurance costs for shipping, yes, that's the problem. The Red Sea, they closed the Red Sea. The next is the Straits of Hormuz, and the third one they want to close is the Straits of Gibraltar, using Algeria and maybe Morocco and that pincher point over there, and shutting down shipping going from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic and vice versa. So Iran is a very, very big threat. And you can see NATO is not about to do much about it. They're relying on America, and that's not a great thing to rely on. Whatever you're going to put out about the rapture, you've got to make it match the words of Yeshua in John 6:39, John 6:40, John 6:44, and John 6:54, that this all happens on the last day. If you don't want to do that, get an X-Acto knife. They're very cheap. Put a piece of cardboard, take those verses, put them over a piece of cardboard very carefully, cut those verses out of your Bible, and you can go about your business. The day of the Lord lasts 7 years in Daniel 9:27. You don't know the Hebrew. Let me show you. Daniel 9:24 says 70 weeks in all the English Bibles except one, right? Every single Hebrew manuscript dating back to 900 AD does not say that. It says Shavim Shavim. The same exact word twice. It means there's two 70s. The first 70 is the Babylonian captivity. There's another 70-year period coming on Israel. Every single Hebrew manuscript has this the same. Every one. No variance. When you use these English Bibles, you got a real problem. Because the church is playing with them. The day of Jacob's trouble is Zechariah 12. Great is Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. You're coming in here and preaching churchianity doctrine. Let me show you what idiots the churches are. And I'm going to use that word idiots. Okay? All the churches, every one of them, the Catholics, the Evangelical, the Pentecostals, the Nominal, I'm going to show you what idiots they are out of your own Bible. Now, if you're going to believe the Bible, you're not going to stay in these churches. When I show you the scripture, it's going to be very quick. But if you don't care about Yeshua, you don't care about the Bible, you care about your church, you're going to stay in your church. And I suggest you go to the Red Cross and take some swimming lessons so you could do the back float in the lake of fire. And by being mean, nasty, and sarcastic, I am, because I'm going to show you the dire trouble you're in if you believe your Bible and you go to these churches. And now you come in here in my chat and put churchianity lying doctrines up. And you think you're doing it correctly, but you're not. You don't know what you are believing in. Galatians 5:19 to 21. Now, if you got any guts, you listen to what I'm saying, and I'm going to read you the scriptures. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, no; fornication, no; uncleanness, church doesn't know what that is; lasciviousness, that's like porn, petting; idolatry, well, when they put a wooden cross up at the church at the podium there on the stage, and they call the people up and they kneel down by this wooden cross and start crying and praying at the cross. Do you ever see that in the Bible? No. You ever see anybody in the Bible wear a cross, put it on their buildings, their windows, their Bibles? No. But the church does it. That's worshiping wood when you do that, is it not? Witchcraft, they don't know what that is really. Hatred, variance. What's variance? Well, the word in the Greek is 2054, eris. And what does it mean? It's not very difficult to understand. Strong's calls it a quarrel, contention, debate, strife, and variance. Can you give me some examples of that, Moshe? I'm talking to myself. Yeah, pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib. They all disagree, and there's also a millennial. They all disagree, yet they all accept the other person's, the other church's position as possibly valid. So they're telling the people, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know nothing. Okay, that's not true. That's just what they want you to believe. But variance is also pray in tongues, don't pray in tongues. Sprinkle baptism, immersion baptism. Baptize in the Holy Spirit, don't baptize in the Holy Spirit. House church, building church. On and on we go. Variance. So when you start putting doctrinal statements up, now you're doing variance. You're not all one in the apostles' doctrine, no. You're doing, some are with Apollos, some are with Cephas. You're not supposed to do that, yet they do it, and they all love it. Variance. Let's keep going. Emulations, wrath, strife, and seditions. What's a sedition? It's an old English word. You go look it up in an old Webster's Dictionary from 1823. It means division. A denomination is a division. What do I mean? They have different doctrinal statements. Oh, we're pre-trib, we're post-trib, we're mid-trib, we're amillennial, we're this, we're that, right? That's a division. And then it says a heresy. A heresy is a sect. When you start, your doctrinal statement is Genesis to Revelation. When you start putting up all your opposing different doctrinal statements, you're becoming heretical or a heresy. Because you're saying, well, this could be right or this could be right. Yeah. All right, but let's keep reading. Envyings, murders. So, variance and divisions, like denominations, are put right up here with murders and adultery and drunkenness and revelings. Now, listen to what Paul said. And such like of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. So is God a liar, and Yeshua and the apostles make these doctrines and they're not true? Then throw the whole faith away. But they're true. And God's not a liar. And if they said, if this is what is written in the Bible, which it is, in all the Bibles, because they want you to know it so your guilt will be greater. But they don't want to dwell on it and explain it to you like I just did. So if you wind up in the lake of fire, I told you so, for going to these places. Now, you think I'm crazy? You have to explain to me how you could disregard these scriptures. That's a good trick if you can pull it off. I don't know how you can. And let me give you an example of people from the church plainly going into the lake of fire. Matthew 7:17. Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. So you're not going to get any good fruit from these churches. Or this scripture makes no sense. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit. Well, their doctrines are evil. That's their fruit. So they're not a good tree. Neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down, cut down, and cast into the fire. There you have it. It's the same as Galatians 5:19-21, but I'll continue. Wherefore by their fruits shall you know them. Only the believers are going to respond to this. Not every one that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Doeth the will of the Father. What does the church teach? Oh, if you just know who Yeshua is, you're saved. And what does Yeshua say? Faith without works is dead. Let's keep reading. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? The Jews in the synagogues, do not prophesy in the name of Yeshua. They get beaten up and thrown out. It's the church that does this. It's not the Hindus, it's not the Buddhists, it's not Islam, it's not the atheists, it's not the communists, it's the churches. Prophesied in thy name, and in thy name have cast out devils. Again, it's only the churches that are doing this, not the synagogues with the Jews, the churches. Let's keep reading. And in thy name done many wonderful works. And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you, depart from me, you that work lawlessness. Therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine, and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man, which built his house upon a rock. And the rock is Yeshua, and it weathers the storm. You're going to see the churches fall apart in America and Asia and Europe very shortly, Because the people are going to very shortly realize that they've been led a line of bunk on end times prophecy very, very shortly, and they're going to fall away from the church. Some will make it, and most won't. Broad and wide is the road to destruction, and many find it, and straight and narrow is the right path, and few find it. So you should dwell on this before you run around in chats and put the crap up that the church teaches, because it's all lies. I'll be right back. Yeah, we don't want stabilizers. Thanks. Well, my wife just gave me this fresh tomato juice. We went to this place that hands out food, and you never know what they have. It's the luck of the draw, and she went there. It's a sort of a charity thing, and we went there yesterday. I'm gonna put some Tabasco in it, and we went there yesterday. Well, she did, and she got a ton of tomatoes, and so she made ketchup without the junk in it, you know. And then we also some of this. This came to me from Europe, courtesy of a subscriber. This is hard as all get up to find it in Israel. It does appear every now and then. The problem in Israel is you see stuff, it appears in the supermarket, and then you don't see it for a year or 6 months or something. So, if you're a believer and you're not of Israeli origin, you're an Israeli. You're in the real Israel. You're in Yeshua. You're in Israel. He's the king of Israel. He's the high priest in the order of Melchizedek. He's from the line of Judah. And it refers to the people as his brethren. You did it not to the least of these, you did it not to these brethren, my brethren, you did it not to me. Remember he talks like that? Or you did it to these brethren, or you did it to me. So he calls you his brethren. And yet the church says, oh, we're not Israel, we stand next to Israel. Yet Romans 11 says all Israel shall be saved. Many places in the Bible it says, Jehovah Elohim, God of Israel. Find one place where it says it's the God of the church. One. So I've got to be strong with people like this because you got to rattle them to come into reality. Come, let us make BRICS to take down the daughter of Babylon. Kind of poetic. Well, BRICS is going to take it down if they can. America's going, is what I'm telling you. It's Jeremiah 50:51 and Isaiah 47. I'll cover that momentarily. Please differentiate between, I don't know what you want me to differentiate between, or I'll try. Please differentiate between America and its leaders. Well, that's why you're going to see a harvest in America, and the real believers and the lost tribes and the Israel believers and stuff are all going to leave America and come to Israel. You've got to study this, Jeremiah 50:51 and Isaiah 47. The others are going to go down with the ship. Well, in Zechariah 12:10, it says that God will pour his spirit out on the house of David and Jerusalem, and then that means they're believers, and then they see the sign of the Son of Man coming in the clouds, and they have everlasting life. Okay, John 6:40 says that the believers that see Yeshua get everlasting life, which does not mean you can't die. What it means is that you live a long time, similar to those before the flood, but probably longer. But really all you have to do is make it into New Jerusalem and drink of the tree of life and the water of life, because it says there's no death in New Jerusalem. Well, you eat of the tree of life and drink of the water of life. And the appearing of the sign of the Son of Man seated on the right hand of power can happen tomorrow. I mean, we're there pretty close. You got to read Zechariah 12. Rapture no bueno. Si está idiota. I could still bring up Spanish. I could bring up French every now and then too. Maybe if I do enough of that red light stuff, I'll be able to speak French again. Oh boy, that juice is good. My wife says to me, she says, now remember, if you set it down for about an hour, you got to shake it up again because it has no stabilizers. And then we both said, yeah, who the heck wants stabilizers? You don't want to eat that, you know? It's chemicals. All right, guys, America's in the snare. It's between a rock and a hard place, and whatever America does, it's kaput. And we know in Jeremiah 49 that Elam is going to be destroyed, which is Iraq, Syria, and Iran. Now, we don't have the details about who and exactly does it. It says destroyed by her enemies. Now, Iran, Iraq, and Syria got enemies like NATO, European Union, America, you know, Israel, other countries. You know, they got a lot of enemies. I don't know how it's going to happen. We don't get the dotting the I's and crossing the T's in the prophecies. I think it's going to happen real soon. And there's all kinds of things we could talk about. America does something to Iran contrary to what Biden thinks Israel's going to do. Now, we know America's going to turn against Iran, against Israel. And I'll show you the scripture. I got to look it up. I don't remember the verse. It won't take but a few seconds to get it. I'm going to get it from my notes. I got it here. I just got to look for it. Where are we? Yemen's going to go too in Jeremiah 49. It calls it Edom. Edom is by the Red Sea. It also refers to it as Taman, which means south, and it's the name of Yemen in Hebrew. So Yemen is Edom. They get it. Okay, Jeremiah 51:24. Told you I had it. Jeremiah 51:24. And I will render unto Babylon and to all the inhabitants of Chaldea, that's the daughter of Babylon, America, all their evil that they have done in Zion in your sight, saith the Lord. Well, let's break the words down to make sure the translation is correct, which I think it is. Let's break it down. The word for render is shalom, not shalom, shalom. Boy, I don't think they have this right. Let's see. Let's see what Strong's uses in English for this word. Strong says it means to make sense, to make safe. So it's saying make safe, Babel. No, that doesn't make sense. Hang on a second, I gotta bring the dogs in. It's 84 degrees, I gotta get them. That's a lot. I'll be right back. This just takes a second or two. Render doesn't sound like a good translation. I'll fix it when we get back. Come on in, yo. Come on, Chief. You know what? I'll put the air conditioning on for you guys. Well, you're not actually panting. I don't think we need it. Well, I'm a little concerned about that word render, but let's go with it. Rather than spend a long time trying to figure out how to put it into English. It's kind of a peace type, covenant peace type word, but okay. Render unto Babel. You see, in the English it says Babylon. In the Hebrew it always says Babel, which means confusion. And America's rather confused. And to all the inhabitants of Chaldea. The Chaldeans were witches and soothsayers. So where are the witches and soothsayers in America? They run the companies, entertainment, movies, TV, government. All their evil, and let's check that word for evil. Yeah, it means bad or evil. It's evil's fine. That they have done in Zion, which is the Israel, Israel. In your sight, let's look at that. The word is eyes, ayin, but yeah, okay, in your sight. Saith Jehovah. Behold, I am against thee, O destroying mountain, saith Jehovah, which destroyeth all the earth, and I will stretch out my hand upon thee and roll thee down from the rocks, and will make thee a burned mountain. Now it's talking about America, and the churches never let on that this is America. They don't want it. They don't want you to know. Because then you're going to say, well, why would he do that? All the churches are here. Well, then sooner or later people are going to say, gee, maybe there's something wrong with the churches. Jeremiah, well, so, this is, now the big verse that the church never talks about is in Jeremiah 30, verse 11. And this is talking about Jacob's trouble, the birth pangs, the travail, which is the birth of the nation in a day. Jeremiah 30:11. For I am with thee, saith Jehovah, to save thee. Though I make a full end of all nations, it's goyim, so it means heathen nations, whither I have scattered thee, yet will I not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure, and will not leave thee altogether unpunished. So when we read Ezekiel 38:39, we never read anywhere of God making a full end of all the nations He scattered the people in. Being Jewish, I have a pretty good idea, having studied it also, what these nations are, and I come up with about 125. If you took a position that I do, that this means scattered over the history of time, you get 125. If you're going to say, oh, it just means the nations that the Israelites are in today, you might get it down to 100, They never teach this. That's why the church is going to fall apart. Because it's built on sand, not the rock. There's many scriptures that it doesn't talk about. So right now, as I covered the other day, I think the daughter of Babylon says it has her own harvest. So I think it's the first one where the people are going to leave and come to Israel in the next great Exodus. So we'll start with America. You got 6.5 million known Jews there. God only knows how many Jews are living there that don't know they're Jews, because the parents stopped. A lot of Jews, especially after the Holocaust, but even before the Holocaust, you could even say that the pogroms in Russia before World War I caused this. And they came out of Russia and Poland, like my grandparents, and they came to America. Some came to Mexico, some went to Europe, they went to other countries and so on. And they changed their names. They took names like Black, Jones, Davis. They started naming their kids, Randolph and Stephan, and names that are not normally associated with Jewish names, like not Ariel or Avi, stuff like that. And they stopped telling their kids they were Jewish. And they moved into areas where there were not a lot of Jews. And they just went about. They typically wouldn't go to church, and they wouldn't go to synagogue, and they just acted like, Gentile atheists or something, And their kids would be able to join the different fraternities and sororities in college, and they could get jobs in companies that were anti-Semitic, and they wouldn't be discriminated against. They didn't have to worry about the Ku Klux Klan and stuff like that. The Ku Klux Klan generally left the Jews alone, unless the Jews started stirring the pot. But the Jews didn't really come under the attention of the Ku Klux Klan. They, if they were making a big thing over, displaying, let's say, Hanukkah menorah in the window, they'd probably get a broken window or get a burning cross on the lawn or something. They weren't in the habit of hanging them or beating them up or burning their houses, right? The Jews walked softly. So if they were in a southern town and they owned a department store, nobody really bothered them. If they had a jewelry store, nobody really bothered them. They just kept a low profile. They lived in the community, and that type of thing. They didn't even bother synagogues. There were small synagogues. They weren't really they didn't like the Jews. They didn't think they were equal to them, but they didn't really go after them to any great extent. They would insult them, Christ killer, and stuff like that. But if the Jews kept their profile, just went about their business and didn't bother them or bother anybody or get outspoken, they were left alone. But for a lot of people, that wasn't enough. So they changed their names, and that was it. It's rather difficult to see somebody and say, if they're, they used to say, dress British and think Jewish. If they're, dressing Ivy League or something, and they live not in a Jewish neighborhood in a big city known for Jews in Europe or America, and they just, when they didn't have a Jewish name, they weren't members of the synagogue, they didn't tell people they were Jewish, they never wore any Jewish emblems, and they just went about their business, they escaped detection. It's not that you could just see somebody and say that's a Jew. That's not the case. They just didn't know, the difference. And a lot of these people probably married non-Jews and they don't know who they are, but God knows who they are. Okay, so you've got to deal with Jeremiah 30:11, which the churches are saying they're not going to deal with. You see, this is what they call the Great Reset, but they don't know what a Great Reset is. The nations were built on Satan. Satan's the god of this age, so all the nations today are run by Satanists, and they are at the end of their life. We're in recompenses now, and shortly will be in redemption, and Zechariah 12 is coming up. So I think what we're going to see, well, I had some scriptures that I forgot yesterday. Let me get those. I hate it when I forget to do scriptures, but it happens. Let me find it. One problem we got with Biden is, what's he going to do after the election's over? I mean, it could be if Kamala wins or Trump wins. He may really turn bad against Israel. He does not like Israel. He's a Satanist through and through. So what's he going to do? He could get very ugly with Israel. If, let's say, Kamala loses, he says, what the heck do I care? Let me get my revenge against Netanyahu in Israel now before Trump gets in. I'll give Trump such a big mess, he'll never clean it up. You see? Let's do Zechariah 2. I'll get the verses. Let's start in 1. I lifted up my eyes again and looked, and behold, a man with a measuring line in his hand. Then said I, whither goest thou? And he said unto me to measure Jerusalem, to see what is the breadth thereof and what is the length thereof. After Zechariah 12 is over, the dimensions or the geographical size of Jerusalem will be much bigger than what it is then. And behold, the angel that talked with me went forth, and another angel went out to meet him, and said unto him, Run, speak to this young man, saying, Jerusalem shall be inhabited as towns without walls, for the multitude of men and cattle therein. I think when it says cattle, it could probably mean lambs and goats and cattle. I'm thinking that's what it means, but let's see what the word actually says. Not that that's that important. Yeah, it's a general beast. A coyote is the animal, or it's an agricultural animal, let's call it that. Okay. For I, saith Jehovah, will be unto her a wall of fire round about, and will be the glory in the midst of her. Ho, ho, come forth and flee from the land of the north, saith Jehovah. Now that's not America, that's north of Israel. For I have spread you abroad as the four winds of the heavens, saith Jehovah. That's the diaspora. After 70 AD in Jerusalem, and it's still ongoing. Deliver thyself, O Zion, that dwellest in the daughter of Babylon. Boom. O Zion, the Israelites dwelling in the daughter of Babylon, dwelling in America, deliver yourself. Well, they'll be leaving, so. And the non-Israelite born believers will be leaving too. The rest of them, sorry about that. That's it. It is what it is. I'm just reading it. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm not God. Believe me, I'm not. For thus saith Jehovah of armies, after the glory, Jehovah is God, and he sets it. After the glory, he hath sent me unto the heathens, which spoiled you. For he that toucheth you touches the apple of his eye. That would probably, I would say, the pupil of his eye, like sticking your finger in his eye. And that's what the surrounding countries are doing to Israel now, are they not? For behold, I will shake my hand upon them, and they shall be a spoil to them, to their servants, and you shall know that Jehovah of armies hath sent me. So they're going to be a spoil to us. Sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion. And that's the Israelites. America's the daughter of Babylon, but the daughters of Zion are stuck in America, and they will come back and become daughter of Zion. For lo, and if you're just a believer in Yeshua, you're in Israel, and you will be saved. All Israel will be saved. Sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for lo, I come and I will dwell in the midst of thee, saith Jehovah. Now they're telling you this is Yeshua and all that. The glory of God of Israel is the angel that was with Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. In Exodus 23, verse 20, God says he put his name Jehovah in this angel, who is Michael, so this angel can receive offerings instead of Jehovah. Okay? And this is who goes in the next temple. And the next temple is not in Jerusalem, it's the next temple. Okay, and he resides there in the house not made with human hands. And many nations shall be joined to Jehovah in that day. It says many heathen. The word is goyim, it means heathen. In that day. And shall be my people. You see, the gospel's open to everybody, as long as you're in Yeshua, right? Okay. The Lord in that day, and shall be my people, and I will dwell in the midst of thee, and thou shalt know that Jehovah of armies hath sent me unto thee. and Jehovah shall inherit Judah and his portion in the Holy Land, and shall choose Jerusalem again. And that's what we have now, is Jerusalem and Judah. He doesn't call us Israel at this point in time, because the 10 tribes are not back and we don't have the full amount of land. Be silent, though, all flesh, before Jehovah, for he is raised up out of his holy habitation. And that's, he's going to come down with Yeshua at his right hand and appear in the clouds. And that's when the people get everlasting life, and that's when the 2 witnesses burn them up. And where is that? Well, the church, of course, never wants to teach you any of this, but it's in Zechariah 12, verse 6. This is the siege when they surround Jerusalem and Judah. In that day will I make the chiefs, it means the judges of Judah like an earth of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf, and they shall devour. The word would be better translated burn up. They shall burn up all the people round about on the right hand and on the left, and Jerusalem shall remain still, inhabited in her own place, even in Jerusalem. So the 2 witnesses burn up the enemies round about on the right hand and the left. Now, he says it twice because there's 2 of them, and they're the ones with the fire coming out of their mouth. And the church is ignorant of this, or they're intentionally not talking about it clearly. They say it's the army of Israel. It's not. That's terrible translation, and it's stupid, you know. Okay. Prayer requests. Sorry. Prayer requests for MF Mike Foxtrot. MF Mike Foxtrot. MF healing for shoulder issue. A healing for a shoulder issue for MF. Okay. AS Alpha Sierra. AS Alpha Sierra. The father of Alpha Sierra. I don't have initials. So the father of AS needs healing, elderly person cancer issue, so it's serious. AS's father needs healing a cancer issue for elderly guy. Okay, and what was the other scripture I didn't cover the other day? Where is it? Psalm 137. Did I cover this? I don't know, maybe I did. Let's read it. 137. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down, yea, we wept when we remembered Zion. We hanged our harps upon the willows in the midst thereof. For there they that carried away captive the Babylonians during the captivity required of us a song, and they that wasted us required of us mirth, saying, sing us one of the songs of Zion. That was rather nasty. How shall we sing the Lord's song in strange land? If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget. The right hand is often refers to as Yeshua, as his right hand, who sits on his right hand. If I do not remember thee, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. If I prefer not Jerusalem above my chief joy. Remember, O Jehovah, the children of Edom, not today is Yemen, in the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it, even to the foundations thereof. In other words, wreck it. O daughter of Babylon, there we go, America. O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed. There it is. Happy shall he be that rewarded thee as thou hast served us. Happy shall be happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against the stones. Those are the invaders, which are going to be heavy Muslims and communists that are already in there as illegals, are going to rise up. The latest readings I'm getting from a guy that was a high-ranking official in the Border Patrol is this 30 million is his low figure. He thinks it could be as high as 50 million. And 60 to 70% are military-age males, so you can figure it out. And it looks like this is the time when Iran, Russia, North Korea, China need to spring that trap on America. So things are getting real, and that's what we got, you know. Look, we all went to the church at one time, I believe, and we all came out of the church. So you're not doomed if you go to the church and you come out and repent. Ask the Lord to forgive you because of what they are, in reality, what they teach. But if you stay there and think it's a good thing, that's a bad idea. Where does Matthew 24:14 to 16 fit in? Okay. Matthew 24:14. Matthew 24:14. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee unto the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop come not down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe to them that are with child, and them that give suck in those days. But pray that your flight be not in winter, neither on the Sabbath day. Gee, Yeshua was prophesying this out into the future, so why would he say, pray your flight's not on the Sabbath day if the law was dead? He wouldn't, would he? No. So when does the true gospel go forth? Well, it's already started, but I'm not elaborating. Let's see. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all. I want to check the words. The word for world here should be cosmos. It's not. Well, it actually has a meaning like that, so it's okay. In all the world for a witness unto all nations. When does that start? Probably when you finish with Zechariah 12. That's when it's going to spread. That's when I believe it'll happen. It's certainly not happening now. I mean, you guys have it, but that's it. All right. Did I leave anything else out? Let me check. I hate when I do that. So after the election, you might see Biden just leave Israel in the lurch or do worse things to us. It says that America will do evil in our sight, so we're going to be in trouble with them. It could be because Kamala won the election and he says, now I can show my true colors, it doesn't matter. Or it could be Trump won and then he says, oh, I'm going to mess Israel up, you know. Netanyahu was probably trying to help Trump get the Jewish vote. And that could be ticking Biden off big time. Still checking here, make sure I got everything. So it's very difficult to figure out exactly when this stuff's going to go down and exactly how it's going to work, but we get a general idea from prophecy, and we try to look for the timing of this as best we can. That's why Yeshua said watch. So we're supposed to watch, which means to me taking the news and applying it to Bible prophecy and trying to put the pieces together so we understand what's going on and what's not going on, you know. So that's basically what I got for today, which was a lot. There's a lot going on. And don't be scared, just be a believer and everything will be okay. He will deliver you from the wrath to come and no harm will come near your dwelling if you're a believer. And you will go on the Exodus to stop in the wilderness and pass under the rod and enter the bond of the covenant and then come into Israel. And you'll leave with wealth and riches and you'll be quite wealthy in Israel and Israel will be the best place to live. Right now, it's terribly a horrible place to live. I mean, for over a year, we're taking missiles and rockets, probably, for out of 360-day biblical year, we probably took missiles and rockets for 320 or 330 days to some extent, plus drones, plus terrorist attacks. It's a very difficult, hard place to live. And you were dealing with a government that, is very secretive towards us, doesn't tell us what the state of the economy is, doesn't tell us how many people left Israel, doesn't tell us anything. Now, a lot of them that left probably have intentions of returning if the war is settled down. That doesn't mean they will return, it means they are telling themselves. So, I hope you got something out of this. I'm Moshe. Pray for me and my wife. Her name's Rivka. For peace, safety, protection, joy, healing, Pray for our health and our finances. Pray for our animals and pets, which are all rescues, that they be happy, healthy, and whole. The bird Dolly we've been praying for, she is not getting any worse. So I think she's getting better. She's definitely, man, you know, the other day I was in my room, in my bed yesterday, I think, and I was, you know, looking at the iPad or something, and I started seeing things out of the corner of my eye. And I said, what is that? It must be the dog's tail waving or something. I don't know. And it happened a few times. Then the next thing I know, she's climbing up on my shelves, the bird, and she gets herself with my sunglasses on. I'm thinking, oh, she stopped breaking sunglasses. I need this like a hole in the head. So I called for my wife, because I don't handle the bird. I don't know how she would have responded. So my wife double timed it in and picked her up and cuddled her, and she left. But she's a pretty bold little bird. I guess she likes me because she came in the room and didn't feel at odds with me or anything. And she just made herself at home and started climbing all around, you know. She didn't get up on the bed, and that's a good thing, because the way they get up on the bed is they use their beak and their talons to dig into your sheets and climb up your bed. Not what you need, holes in your sheet, you know. So she went up on a thing that was made out of metal, shelves, all metal, and I don't think she did anything to the metal. I don't know what she was up to, but I don't think she did either. She was just, you know, saying, hey, I'm bored, let me check it out, what's going on here. Hey, maybe this guy got some food here. Let's see, you know. That's probably what it was, you know. I do have some food in the room, but it was the other side of the room. And I don't know what her game was, but anyway, she's cute. So, pray for better videos. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray I get my packages, please. Pray for, I don't know, what else? I think we covered it, you know. You know, I think the time is getting shortening. If you look around you, things are getting crazy and crazier and crazier. It's just building up. The wars haven't broken out yet, because when they are, they're liable to be so potent and powerful and devastating that it'll be pretty frightening. So it'll shorten the time. But the only real war that's actually ongoing is Israel's wars and the Ukraine-Russian thing. But there's a big risk of others breaking out. And the United States is in a snare. They lose whatever they do. If they attack Iran and try to bake up BRICS, they're going to lose. If they do nothing, they're going to lose. They're just, you know, why are they losing? Because they're fighting with God. Look at the morality in the country. Look at the values they teach the kids in the school. Look at the churches that are so weird. You know, you've got Satan churches, you've got all kinds of pervert churches, you've got, I mean, you know, it's just one crazy mess of satanic madness after another. And no repentance, none. Just pushing ahead like they run the earth. And they don't. So I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. We went about 3 hours today. Please hit the thumbs up, and you might want to subscribe, and that's what I got. And so I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out. Thanks.